My ex-husband and his family, who used to be nice, turned out to be different than I thought. It all started when they learned I inherited money from my ancestors. Dealing with their changed behavior was tough, even though I knew that money could change people. This eventually led to our divorce, and now I have no connection with my in-laws. Apparently, their household is still chaotic. A few years ago, my aunt, who worked hard and invested wisely, passed away. Although I didn't pay much attention to her wealth initially, my mother once mentioned that my aunt had substantial assets. Despite her financial stability, my aunt was frugal. She cooked her own meals, shopped at regular supermarkets, and preferred quality over quantity when it came to clothing. I always admired and loved her values. Back in her time, it was common for men to work outside, while women took care of the home. Despite earning more than many men, my aunt faced criticism for breaking this norm. She was unmarried, without children, and lived life on her own terms. People saw her as different, but she didn't let it bother her. In fact, she had an attitude of let them say what they want and remained confident. One day, while we were casually sipping tea on the sofa, she surprised me by saying, "If something happens to me, I want you to inherit my estate." Startled by her sudden statement, I asked her to explain. She said, "I'm not married, and I don't have children. So who else should inherit my assets but someone who has faced belittlement and judgment from those around me? I don't want them getting my money. I still need to prepare the inheritance documents, but I want to clearly state that you are the heir," she said with a smile, but in a serious tone. When she shared this with me, I didn't question it and simply agreed. I thought, if that's what my aunt wanted, she had the right to decide. At that time, she was only in her 40s, and the actual day of inheritance seemed so distant, probably 30 or 40 years away. Being still in high school, I had little understanding of inheritance or estates. Honestly, I considered her statement as a joke. Years passed. I got married, had children, and got caught up in the business of life. It was during this time that my mother informed me about my aunt's declining health. Panicking, I rushed to the hospital where she was supposed to be admitted. On reaching there, my seemingly energetic aunt greeted me, dismissing the notion that she wasn't feeling well. She assured me it was just a routine checkup and that I shouldn't worry. Reassured by her usual smile, I thought everything was fine. However, unbeknownst to me, her health was deteriorating, and her frequent hospitalizations indicated the severity of her condition. Each time she was admitted, I'd bring my children along to visit. With each passing day, I noticed her cheeks hollowing, her arms and neck becoming thin, and her overall strength visibly diminishing. Despite her frailty, she always greeted me with a smile, portraying immense strength. It was the same smile I had known since childhood. I held on to hope for her recovery, but sadly, she eventually passed away. The funeral was an intimate gathering of close family, and I couldn't help but feel regret. I wished I had visited more frequently or adjusted our schedules to create more shared memories. I knew, though, that regretting it afterward was futile. My children, who adored my aunt, also felt the sense of loss. Witnessing their sorrow and regret for not spending more time with her added to my own pain. In the midst of grieving, I received an A4-sized brown envelope at my doorstep. Glancing at the sender, I saw it was from a lawyer's office. Confused, I wondered why they would send me something when I had no memory of involving a lawyer. I hadn't been aware of any legal matters or crimes. I cautiously opened the envelope and examined its contents. It contained details related to my aunt's inheritance, making me realize that her statement from long ago wasn't a joke, and I needed to verify the information. I reached out to the lawyer's office, and during the conversation, I discovered that my aunt and the lawyer were old friends who had maintained contact. The lawyer had been entrusted with handling matters regarding her estate and inheritance after her passing. When the lawyer revealed the total amount of my aunt's estate, I was taken aback. I had anticipated a few million at most, but it exceeded 200 million. Confused by this substantial sum, I contacted my mother. After discussing with the lawyer, she shared surprising news, saying, It seems you yourself agreed to be your sister's heir. She asked me about it after your high school graduation, and I told her that it was acceptable if that's what you both decided. Her response caught me off guard, but my mother remained optimistic. Despite my unease about managing such a large amount of money, my mother suggested, "Your sister went through the trouble of leaving the documents for you, so why not accept it gratefully?" She casually added, "She left all the documents for you, so you should take them gratefully." When I questioned if she didn't want to inherit the property, she explained, "Inheritances can often lead to family disputes. A long time ago, one of my grandmother's brothers passed away without a will, causing daily fights among the siblings and their children over the inheritance. Your sister, however, left a document stating that you would inherit the estate, so it wouldn't be right for me to claim it. Just be cautious with your in-laws and husband." She shared a cautionary tale, remembering the past. Despite my assurance that my husband wouldn't be concerned, little did I know that this would later become a reality. A few days later, my ex-husband, displaying some unease, inquired, "Is that document from the lawyer about the estate?" Although I was puzzled about how he knew, I saw no reason to conceal it. Upon my honest admission, his eyes lit up, and he probed about the inherited amount. A sense of foreboding crept over me. Attempting to divert his interest, I casually mentioned it was around $7 million, but his smug expression hinted he sensed a different figure. Despite my attempts to dismiss his suspicions, he persistently urged a more thorough check. Initially brushing him off nonchalantly, I eventually grew annoyed, stating firmly, "I've already told you it's $7 million. Why you keep asking?" His vague response, "I just have a feeling there might be more," left me frustrated, and I insisted that we put an end to the discussion. Strangely, from the next day onward, his demeanor changed, and he began ignoring me. Experiencing this unfamiliar treatment surprised me. Driven by pride, neither of us initiated conversation, and 2 months passed in silence. During this period, my former in-laws, usually considerate in notifying us before visiting, abruptly appeared at our home. Their unannounced arrival sparked concern, making me wonder if something serious had occurred. They greeted me, saying, "We heard about your recent inheritance from your aunt, and is over $100 million, right? Our house is getting old, and we've been considering renovations. We're proud of our son for marrying someone like you. How about we expand the house and add a room for you too? It's a great opportunity. Think about living together." My ex-father-in-law shared this proposal while my ex-mother-in-law nodded with a smile. I was taken aback, not only because my ex-husband knew the exact inheritance amount, but also at the audacity of my in-laws suggesting the use of that money for their home improvements. Despite my shock, they enthusiastically discussed plans, including an island kitchen and making the house more accessible. Unable to tolerate it any longer, I intervened, saying, "Please don't make decisions without consulting me." They even mentioned having already obtained a cost estimate, clearly counting on my inheritance, and seemed oblivious to any wrongdoing. Overwhelmed, I had many things I wanted to express, but wanting to avoid emotional confrontation, I simply asked them to leave for the day. Later that evening, I confronted my husband upon his return from work. Initially evasive, he eventually admitted to snooping into my bank book. The inheritance details were typically stored deep inside my dresser, indicating he thoroughly searched the room. His level of obsession disappointed me. I recounted the day's events with his parents, expressing my frustration. Unexpectedly, he argued, "We're a couple, so the money you inherit becomes joint property. The inheritance is also mine, and using it for my parents' house renovation is only natural. You're in the wrong for hiding the actual amount." Despite my ex-husband persistently defending his parents' actions, insisting I was at fault, it was clear that their behavior was unacceptable. Adding to the shock, he casually revealed in the conversation that he had quit his job. Confused, I questioned, "Hold on, what do you mean by that? If we're so well off, can't I live without working? With financial comfort, why endure a stressful job? It's a waste of time. If we live off your money, we can have a stress-free and peaceful life enjoying our time. Renovating my parents' house would even boost your status as the son's wife. It's all beneficial. Why be so upset when there are only advantages? He expressed this with a frustrated look, leaving me feeling hopeless. While I expressed my willingness for the renovation, I clarified that I wasn't planning to fund it. This infuriated my ex-husband once again. The plans are already in motion. I remained indifferent, ignoring his continued ranting. The next day, he returned with his parents, complaining that the situation had changed. I retorted, "Changed? You made decisions without consulting me in the first place. Even if I had agreed, why would I fund it? This money isn't for renovating your parents' house, nor is it for supporting a son who quit his job without discussion. After all our kindness, and you, being wealthy yet so miserly, have some nerve." Disillusioned, I realized their true nature and informed them I had nothing more to discuss, asking them to leave. Upon hearing my straightforward reply, "I mean exactly what I said," my ex-husband began to panic. Inquiring if I was suggesting a divorce, I calmly informed him that we would discuss it with a lawyer and then ushered them away. Later, I packed my belongings and sought refuge in a business hotel. Despite my ex-husband persistently expressing his refusal to accept a divorce and professing his love for me, I responded by stating that his affection was likely for my money, not me, and proceeded to turn off my phone. The following day, I visited my parents and shared the unfolding events. They were disappointed but not surprised. When asked about my future plans, I revealed my consideration of divorce. My mother advised me to stand firm, sensing his reluctance to let go. They also suggested investigating if he had committed other wrongdoings. Following their advice, I hired a detective agency, discovering his frequent visits to nightlife establishments for questionable reasons. This revelation solidified my determination to pursue a divorce. Seeking legal assistance from a knowledgeable divorce lawyer, I formally requested a divorce from my then-husband, who vehemently rejected the idea. Not only did he refuse, but he also demanded compensation and the division of assets if I wanted a divorce. When the lawyer clarified that the inheritance from my relatives did not qualify as marital assets and was not subject to property division, my ex-husband argued against it. The lawyer posed a scenario. If his parents were to pass away, would he willingly hand over the inherited assets to his wife, claiming it as family money? He fell silent in response. Despite further lectures on the unreasonableness of his actions, my ex-husband, with tears in his eyes, pleaded for me to cover the renovation costs. Naturally, that was not an option, and he appeared utterly dejected. Later, I learned that the renovation had already been completed, assuming I would foot the bill, as he had arranged it in his name. Furthermore, the detailed renovation unexpectedly surpassed a total of 7 million yen. It appeared that his reluctance to agree to a divorce was rooted in his inability to meet these payments. I consistently maintained that regardless of our marital status, there was no justification for me to fund the renovation of his parents' home. Despite my firm stance, he'd audaciously attempted to negotiate, proposing that I cover half of the costs. However, he'd abandoned this pursuit when my lawyer threatened to sue him for extortion. Yet, not entirely conceding defeat, my ex-husband's parents even appeared at my family's house. In the end, my father had to intervene physically. The confrontation escalated, resulting in damage to a potted plant at the entrance, prompting us to call the police. When the police arrived to hear our side of the story, they became violent and were subsequently arrested. Naturally, the entire neighborhood became aware of this incident, and the gossip continued even after their release. Considering these tumultuous events, I openly shared the story with some neighbors who enjoyed gossip. Consequently, the audacity of my ex-husband's family became widely known throughout the neighborhood. Eventually, we finalized the divorce. However, even after the legal separation, I continued to receive messages from him expressing love and a desire to start over. In response, I obtained a restraining order through my lawyer. Recognizing the temporary nature of restraining orders, lasting at most 6 months, and given my ex-husband's apparent disregard for such legal measures, I decided to relocate with my parents to avoid potential retaliation. While I felt guilty about uprooting my parents from their familiar surroundings due to my circumstances, considering the various dangers and challenges we faced, moving seemed to be the only viable option. Consequently, we made the move discreetly, akin to fleeing in the night. Once things settled down, I informed my children about the decision. Although they were understandably shocked, they all empathized with my situation, acknowledging that under the circumstances, there was little else we could do. Life continued without major issues, but my ominous feelings proved accurate. Despite the restraining order, my ex-husband was found lingering near my former family home. A vigilant police officer, sensing something amiss, questioned him and discovered a small knife in his pocket, leading to his arrest. When my lawyer informed me about this development, including my ex's desire to talk, a chill ran down my spine. I shuddered to think of the potential danger if I hadn't moved away, naively relying on the restraining order for protection. Ultimately, my ex-husband was released sooner than anticipated since no one was harmed. However, the fear of returning to the area where my family home once stood lingers. For a brief period, I lost track of my ex, but a friend living near his family home provided updates. Following the renovation, heated arguments about finances became a daily occurrence. Phrases like, "You took out the loan in your name, so it's your responsibility," or "This house belongs to our parents, so they should cover the expenses," resonated loudly, making the nature of the conversations evident. Beyond verbal disputes, the sounds of objects being broken could be heard despite the recent renovation. The police were occasionally called to intervene, cautioning the family. There were also occasional remarks blaming me for the divorce or accusing others of supporting it. Before the inheritance issue, we had a decent relationship, and the bond between my ex and his father was strong. Witnessing how money could destroy these connections saddened me. Reflecting on my mother's words that money can change people, I now understand the truth behind that statement. Additionally, it appears that my ex-mother-in-law is urging my ex to find a job already, and his retort, "Shut up," is audible. It seems he still hasn't found employment, which might be challenging given his age. Due to my open sharing of the story, the neighbors are aware of our messy divorce. Consequently, nobody approaches the ex's family, fearing requests for money. Some even believe that going near their house could bring bad luck. I couldn't help but laugh when I heard this rumor. Currently, I reside in a moderately spacious rental apartment with my parents. Despite their constant encouragement to prioritize myself, the thought of remarriage doesn't even cross my mind. I've decided to spend the rest of my life with my parents. The fear lingers that if a potential partner discovers the inheritance, they might undergo a transformation similar to my ex-husband. Additionally, since I never had many hobbies or extravagant spending habits, I plan to maintain my usual lifestyle. I envision utilizing this inheritance for the well-being of my parents and myself in the future, especially if there's a need for special care in our old age or to celebrate significant milestones like my children's weddings or the arrival of grandchildren. Honestly, it's a substantial amount that won't deplete with casual spending. This money is a precious legacy from my admired aunt, and I intend to handle it with the same care she did. Lately, while working part-time, I've delved into learning about investments and financial management. It's proven to be a challenging endeavor, deepening my respect for my aunt, who skillfully managed it for many years. Although we lead content lives, occasional updates reach me about the challenging situation my ex-husband and his family are facing. However, since we are divorced, they are now strangers. Regardless of their struggles, I hope they navigate through them without involving others.